event is Never Created, Never Destroyed, a reading conversation between Sean D. Henry Smith, Justin Allen, Elliott Jerome Brown Jr., and Kearra Amaya Gopee. This is the first in a series of online events organized on the occasion of Sean D. Henry Smith's new exhibition titled In Awe of Geometry and Mornings, which is currently on view here at White Columns. The exhibition brings together a selection of 10 photographs drawn from Henry Smith's most recent book, Wild Peach. Wild Peach is a collection of photographic images and poems, which was published by Future Poems this past fall. This exhibition is Henry Smith's first photo-focused presentation in New York City and is on view through March 6th. If you're unable to make it to the gallery to see the show in person, images are available online at whitecolumns.org. We want to thank Sean for working with us, presenting this incredible exhibition here at White Columns, and for organizing tonight's event. I just want to formally introduce all of our panelists that we have here today. So first and foremost, we have Justin Allen, who makes performances and writes poems and essays to understand our relationship to time, social context, and place. He has shared his work at the Poetry Project, Brooklyn Museum, BAD, and Issue Project Room, where he was a 2020 Artist in Residence. He has received support from Franklin Furness and Foundation for Contemporary Arts. Elliott Jerome Brown Jr.'s work contemplates the use of discretion in photography. He has had solo exhibitions at Nickel, Beauchesne Gallery in New York, Staple Goods, New Orleans, and Baxter Street at the Camera Club of New York. His work has been included in various group exhibitions with Public Art Fund, the Studio Museum in Harlem, the MAC, Belfast, Leslie Loman Museum, and PPOW Gallery, among others. He recently completed the 2019-2020 Airspace Residency at Abrams Art Center in New York, and was a recipient of the 2019 Rima Hortman Foundation Emerging Artists Grant. Kearra Amaya Gopee is an anti-disciplinary visual artist from Kema, Trinidad and Tobago.
Go ahead.
Currently based in Tobangar, Los Angeles. The research-based practice focuses on the nature of violence and erasure and the particularities of those that are inflicted on the Caribbean and its diasporas by the global north. And of course, Sean D. Henry Smith, an artist and writer working primarily in poetry and photography and performance. They engage in Black experimentalism and collaborative practices. With that being said, thank you all for joining us tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Sean to get the conversation going. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. Thank you all for being here. Justin, Kearra, Elliott. Thank you, audience that we cannot see, for being here, but also knowing that it's filled with friends and people I care about, and people who care about me, and people who care about us. And I'm just really glad that we can be in the space to kind of hang out. And I think there are many resonances in the way that we work, but the way that we can share it right now is through voice. I'm just really happy to have our voices in the same space. And we're going to keep our mics unmuted throughout this engagement, so that way when the spirit moves and any kind of utterances or background noises that are with us will also kind of be in the space and usher in the togetherness that we can in these distance times. I guess we'll just start with the readings, and we'll start with you, Justin, and then Kearra, then Elliott, and then I will impart some words, and then we'll just chat and read again and chat some more.
Cool. Thank you, Sean, for inviting me to read. It's really cool to be here with everyone. And congratulations. Cool. So I'm gonna share my screen. Cool. So I'm gonna be the first piece I'm gonna read is a poem I wrote it's I have a series of poems that tell the story of an imagined place called Hatnaha, and then a metropolis in Hatnaha called Bat, and I created a language for this place. So this poem is is told from the perspective of a visitor who's visiting this place but isn't fluent in the language, and it's called Grammar. For the island nation of Hatnaha, its infinite metropolis Bat, and my Hatnahan's teacher that could never get me to study. 3 people chain their bikes along a narrow street that teems with foot traffic. Bluish 2-story cylindrical buildings line the street infinitely to the horizon. From the train entrance, passers-by emerge from underground, spill into the street that teems with foot traffic, and bustle off in either direction. A calm, pale sun indicates the hour, while no one checks their watches, and one person parks their bike along the narrow street against an inans. Inans line the takuksa all the way to the horizon that cradles the calm, pale sun, and the wind blows briskly through the narrow street where passers-by pause to check. Follow Natna street along horizon 2, cradles sun pale, horizon topical and blows. Street through narrow bustling wind brisk, pause check nituksu for passers-by. Bustle direction toward either passers-by. Stops parks bike person topical another. Street along narrow bustling inans against, and governs suddenly street upon rain heavy. And don't have rain in umbrella, I so. Ask passers-by, I thus find umbrella. Location in topical, thus ask I. Don't have snapnanhat rain in I. Search, find, cover, entrance in, train I. Then retrieve bike person topical another. Then retrieve bike person topical another. And speed horizon 2 rain through, bikes on. Scurries street across cat stray gray wet. Retrieves quickly bike person topical another. Speeds horizon 2 rain through bike on. Change quickly raincoats into passers-by. Don't have nituksu sneak umbrella I. Don't have nituksu sneak snapnanhat I. Don't have nituksu sneak snapnanhat ki. Hamanakluk is not smooth hatnahan smai. Regret that is not smooth hatnahan smai. Hamana that dazi smooth hatnahan smai. Hamanakluk dazi smooth hatnahan smai. Hamanakluk dazi skika hatnahan's kana. Retrieve bike person topical fourth and speed. Rain through heavy horizon 2 bike on. Find location in umbrella thus ask I. Regret that is not smooth hatnahan's kana. Speed entrance out in train passers-by. Push speed me around rough passers-by. Announce I that need help I because. Don't have nituksu sneak snapnanhat ki. Stop help me for passerby one thus. Say passerby to topical I that. Hamanakluk dazi skika hatnahans kana. Speak could English you thus ask I. Squint they and ask about thus speaking my. Repeat that speak could English thus ask. Repeat that speak could English thus ask. Speak could aknisan sinans thus ask. Ask thus speak could hatnahans you. Repeat thus speak could hatnahans you. Speed takuksa talk, cat stray gray wet. Say by umbrella place at thus ask. Nods understandably and points takuksu sak. And speeds takuksu talk and doesn't say with by. Look takuksu sak I and see snapnanhutna. Speed entrance from train and stops suddenly rain. Emerges smoothly clouds out sun pale calm. Scurries street across cat stray gray wet. Pause I thus am bewildered humidity in. And stare down the narrow street leading to the horizon.
Wow. Wow. There's such a grand musicality.
Feels like an exercise to read it.
Yeah, I can sense that. I'm really, we'll get into this when we are in the conversation part, but I'm really interested in your having to learn the language that you're also generating, and then being in the position of like being both the student in that you're embodying someone who doesn't know the language and also the teacher in that you are Yeah, cool. Okay. Elliott, I believe you're next.
Okay, I was next.
Oh no, honey, with alphabetical order.
Oh no.
I've been checking.
All right, I'm next. So I will also be sharing on screen. All right. Stoking the flame of a prayer made 6 years ago. Nodded in communion 3 times over and without boundary. I bring back to the page as much as my gaze can hold. Though there is something about the instance of a stain that makes me feel powerless to it. Breath tucks in ways the eyes closed, and beyond that callous layer lie a circular gradient of white into yellow, into burnt orange and red. A euphoric entrance into day, and yet space becomes obscure and distant in the dark. Suddenly, in the aftermath of that quiet to-do of colors, my body is the only thing I know to be here. Take your time, you whisper. Is it that I desire to see Jesus bend, to witness them at odds or in question? A slow want. Have you ever desired to hear your voice from another person's mouth, in the event that you may better understand the effect of it? She certainly occupied 2 and sometimes 3 places at once. Her arms would brush out from center, enabling her to receive the intangible, to measure and fancy her breath. Indeed, this effort was collaborative. Sometimes, on the never-ending stage of her life, she'd cast herself into the nosebleeds. Like a relentless fan, she'd sing along, hair flouncing and hands gripping deeper into her armrests, whenever a note turned an unanticipated left, then right, then upside down. This place in which her focus dwelled, up there under a broken fiddle leaf tree in the last shadow affected by the stage lights, punctured the tension in her neck. Never mind that rent was overdue or that soup was on the stove back at home. This was her sustenance. At the end of a song, she'd meet the edge of the stage, and there they'd exchange applause for gratitude. Her own shining example of bounty, both the light and the space on which it sets. That is deep.
Well, the quiet to-do of colors is really. I feel like hearing this, and also again because we've, I've heard it before, but hearing it again and hearing it recently, and also having written about your work before has offered me like another way of entering the images, and yeah. I'm grateful for that. Yeah, and I'm eager to talk about it. Okay, and now you, Kearra.
I will do the angsty one first. I mean, they're all angsty, but you know the vibes. Sometimes I wish I could write you to death. There are 4 addresses for you online. Street View on Google Maps makes the landscape bright, bloated and stiff. A lilac bungalow in Coral Gables, a pomegranate red pickup truck parked out front, so artificially shiny it could be a child's toy. Somewhere in Miami, somewhere in Fort Lauderdale. Everywhere the doors are too small for you, or the at war with concept. None of them align with the memory that holds fast. But I'm a visioner, so it's not hard for me to melt them all down into an architectural callaloo of sorts and give myself grounds to bury you. I become the hurricane, tearing the roof off of one split-level house and grinding it into another, La Gran Tirana themselves. My tongue spears the windows, blowing them out like brown candles, poison at the tip. Each brick makes a pulsing seam. Each brick makes a pulsing seam, vitriol manifest. Here is something I can pretend to know now. Shingles on top, terracotta below. caimans pressing themselves against the cool glass sliding door, more rat king than reptilian, made brave by fresh rains. Maybe you'd run into their mouths. They seem to drool at the prospect. There is this sickly, flat, lazy boy, CRT TV on the dented console, the zip tie still on each cabinet. A listless fiction, I find myself unable to gather the smoke of you. Maybe hear tendrils streaming out the door to address number 5. Orphan titanium shin sinking deep into mossy carpet, a subject of brief speculation. All you do is drink Diet Coke and lie.
You know how you're slick, right?
Whomst.
You. And I want to say, like, that last line is such a cushion because the lines right before are such knives. You know, you need that cushion.
Look.
Wow. Slick. Okay, I'm not sharing my screen. But I will be reading a thing that I made for this, and sort of like a meditation for today. Never created, never destroyed, nothing new under the sun. Every form of light we cannot see but informs every present reality. The precise sampling of the air within the air, the occupants of space and time gathering in mass, great breath before the formation of systems and worlds and orbitary patterns among orbitary patterns, time pressed, stretched, and folded, the edges aligned in perfect touch. Synchronous accumulation propels to this very grand particulate augmentation orients ordering toward negotiated transference, with as many variables as it can possibly manage, magnitude beyond measure, and communicative gestures at every turn, an experiment in extending the very same great breath, making it whole, being wholly enveloped by it. Native intangibilities solidified and expressed as language and under imposed language. Breathweight reminds us we already knew how to talk, and here again the sun-hot dust of the earth kicked up an instinctive rhythmic response. Cloud of propelled candor, bakchat held back long as necessary, a divergent state to usher us along. Stuttered and chanted vocal fluctuation burped and bounced, crystalline ignition, an attempt at the world. There is how we speak, then there is what we say. When it's all said and done, such is the act of the frame, precise suctioning within the vacuumous multitude, or one way to turn on it, or an angle from which I'm witnessing it now. Robert Moog offers Quincy Jones a new tool, and he hears the horn a new way, and America hears a synth on TV for the first time. Ironside, a bleeding siren the year before this very long 1968, we're still surviving. Highlighted later then again in Kill Bill, the blaring horn-born synth reminds of vicious memory, never created, never destroyed. It was all well before then too. The ground proves itself ready to become tomorrow every single day, always ready to facilitate another form, black origami folding back into yesterday. What was this paper before it was this shape? What was this sound before it was this song? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Wow. Okay. Here we are. Yeah. I think those are actually the first two questions. Like I guess in thinking about how we are working, I'm thinking of text and language as an inherently language-based or time-based medium, and then we're as also people who work with lenses in various ways. Kearra moving through portrait, like not even portrait, but just photography, video. Honestly, even the way that this is mediated is a lens-based medium. I'm thinking a lot of the way that you engage photography, Justin, in that, I mean, you're essentially a street photographer, but also that process is embedded in being explicit about what is within the frame, and that means being explicit about what was just in the frame and what is also immediately happening, as you're re-witnessing it. And Elliott, I think there's an and I mean I think there's like a listless fiction, to quote Kearra, but I think fiction is something that also orients the way we all work, and to a degree. And Elliott, I'm thinking about the way that you bring us back to places that we know, and places that I think, and by we I mean like an inherently Black space. But I'm thinking, I'm actually unfamiliar with the title, but the last slide that you showed of the person who I envision in prayer, and I am envisioning at the altar, and even more so, it's like the colors that you see when you close your eyes in a space in which is like lit with gel lights. It's like it's you know what I mean. So we're like not seeing just the colors of the gel lights, but we're actually seeing the color that the person who is in prayer is experiencing. We're seeing the colors inside their head, and then we're experiencing the time at the altar, which is the longest time ever. You know, like it's. I'm thinking of my own previous experience being the camera person at the church I grew up in, and that sort of like call to altar after the sermon actually was pretty, almost always, you know, and of course there's variety, but it was always around half an hour, but when you're not in the position of recording time, the time waiting and the time actually there feels so much longer, for for all of the perceptions that you're experiencing, the perception of those on the altar, those behind you, and then your very self. And so I know that I've kind of thrown in a lot of variables, but I'm just thinking about time and passages and how that relates to your many practices.
I mean, I guess I would say I'm really, I think, interested in the idea of, look, I guess, like thinking about the present as if it's the past, and speaking about the future as if it's the present. So I think I think I'm interested in time in the sense that I'm interested in thinking about how we're going to historicize what's happening to us now, not even just like collectively, but like also just on a personal level. Like, how will I remember my time as a 28-year-old, or like how will I, if I revisit these places 20 years from now, how will what I'm experiencing now resonate then? And I think I like also writing about the future as if it's the present, because I kind of like, I think there's like a fun deception in like reading a sci-fi and not realizing that it's not about something that's non-fictional. So I like to make things, whenever I imagine things that are in the future, I like to make them seem really, really real, which I think is a part of why I created a language for my sci-fi.
Mhm. Well, I want to hear from others too, and then I want to come back to the sci-fi. I would really love to for you just to like share more about it and like how it has been taking form.
I don't know, I guess I'm thinking about what Justin was just saying about like thinking about how we would historicize the current moment, like past as present, future as also present in a certain regard. And thinking about how that kind of stretches into my practice too, where when I'm working with video, it is a little bit more about how to make multiple times concurrent rather than kind of focusing on like linear time. Like I'm really thinking about time as like not a line but a sphere. And so much of the video that I do is kind of trying to get into that because I got into video because I was just like, I can't do the thing with the pictures. The pictures is not capturing the time. The girls are all lying. I don't know how they think this is doing this. Whether or not that is true, I don't know. But for video, it works.
Yeah. No, but you know what's funny is that I think you know the photograph of yours that I'm the most obsessed with, which is the person in the water, and that's sort of it. You know, and it really it's more than the sense of blur that's creating a kind of like rupture in time. It's actually to me, it's like I can't tell where or who you are in this photograph. You know, like it's like the person in the photograph is being greeted by like a spirit of the ocean. You understand? Like I don't know, something I tend to think about a lot, especially when I'm like looking at, you know what I mean? When I'm looking at someone for a long period of time and looking at an extended body of work, sometimes I even just try to guess like how tall they were or something, just out of like where they end up in the photographs. And I like can't sense you in this picture, and it's really like overwhelming almost. So just so you know, you are doing it in the pictures too, because you're like really good at like masking your presence. Yeah, I find. Yeah, without losing authorship though, or if that's important to you. But yeah.
It kind of go off of what Kearra said about photographers, I guess, suggesting that they are like, I guess, working with multiplicity. Working with that multiplicity. And I think that photographs as needed, having more casting.
You're going out.
I think that I knew it. My internet is really poor. So one second.
I'm sorry.
Skip.
Circle back.
Okay, we'll circle back. Yes,
go ahead.
hold that thought. Well, yeah, I guess I can. Maybe I'll pick up with you, Justin, if that's okay. And I would, just like to know about how, just creating the world of the sci-fi, and like truly, and it's because I understand that you're also like essentially making maps as well. Like you're mapping out like the city itself and the language and like, and what I don't know, just your sense of references and like, your sense of place and also how you imagine like different bodies, like and I don't mean bodies in place of people, but I truly mean just like what is the bodily experience of the imagined city.
So it's like so I basically I started this originally because I was interested in like a world after reparations, and And so I was kind of writing within that larger narrative, the characters in this story read a comic about this imagined place. So I like to make writing and also performances that kind of references itself, or that's aware of itself. So I thought it'd be fun to write a sci-fi about people that are reading a sci-fi. And so it's kind of like a story within a story. I guess the sci-fi is it's a lot of interests that go into it, but I think so that was like one part of it was like I just wanted to create a story within a story and create this imagined place. And then another part of it was I've always had an interest in language construction. And so I just kind of did a bunch of research, and there's like online communities for that call it conlanging, which means constructing a language, and people that construct languages call ourselves conlangers. And so I kind of went down a conlanging rabbit hole on YouTube. I read a book by a guy named David J. Peterson who created the languages for Game of Thrones. I did research conlangs that had been invented, like Klingon, Na'vi, and Avatar. Parcel Tongue in Harry Potter is a fully developed conlang. That's whispered because of vocal cords, so they can't. Really interesting. Yeah, really researched, interesting. Yeah, because a lot of sound vocal cords, so if you can't do that. So I just thought it was really interesting. Yeah, and so then I kind of embarked on creating a language, I guess, more seriously than I had when I was younger. And I was studying grammatical structures, and then I studied different grammatical structures across different languages that like occur across different languages. And I was studying different word orders, lots of different things, and then I eventually came up with what is Hatnahans. So it was kind of and I think the poem I read, I was kind of interested in when you're learning a language, and you first start to read it, and like in other languages, the word order is different. So you'll read it like say you see a language that you're learning, you're gonna read it. You'll probably translate it word for word, but then when you read it in English, it's usually out of order. So you have to then rearrange it. So the poem was kind of trying to like illustrate that experience when you're translating what you hear word for word and nothing's in the right order. So you have to rearrange it to totally understand what's happening. So it was like English in the word order of Hatnahans, basically.
What are you? Sorry. Are you back, Elliott? No. It's okay.
No, I am. I'm using the audio from my phone and then.
Oh. Okay.
Keeping my video here.
Okay. What would you like to be circled back to, and then?
I guess just to kind of like quickly tie up the point that I was beginning to make earlier, and in addition to like maybe taking some time to simmer with what Justin just shared, I was thinking about what Kearra said about most photographers acting like, I guess, believing that photography is enough, like in terms of how it represents time. And I think that limitation is one that encourages me to work with photography in the way that I do, where I am like kind of working in this non-comprehensive way, as a way to again, like Kearra said, like build concurrent times. So each of the things that I read alongside the photographs are their titles. And I noticed that when I was presenting my work on any occasion, that sometimes I would read a title and then read the one that followed after it. and I would go, oh, that was nice. But I never built the presentation based on the titles having a relationship to one another. I built the presentation based on how it, demonstrates my trajectory as an artist, or how, visual build on one another. But connecting it this way makes these titles yet another thing. And my intention with the titles and how they accompany the work is to, one, not give you an answer about what's happening in the image, but two, to kind of conjure up yet another image that may sit alongside this one. And then, there's the result of those two things together, which is perhaps a third image. So really like the iterations like prompted by this one visual work are kind of endless in a way. And I'm reminded of something that I had read that Mark Seeley shared in a book that he wrote about, I think it's called African Cosmologies. And in it, he very simply reminds us that, or maybe not even a reminder, maybe for some people it is new information, but it's a kind of a role in anti-Bart's critique, where it's like, there is no decisive moment, because how can that be when photographs operate differently depending on who receives them, or depending on who receives them. So the instance of the photograph doesn't simply stop at the intention of the artist, which is just something that it was nice to have in language.
And it's funny too, because I think like the language of like the titling doesn't necessarily offer like they aren't descriptive, of course, you know what I mean? Like it does become its own experience, and I think that's actually another reason why it's interesting to hear them all like presented in this way, and activated by voice. I guess I'm just I'm thinking about how that like sits with because you're right. I I'm also sort of like wed to the idea that the image is not enough, and not that it isn't sufficient, but it does need or is open to many experiences. And so like if you're trying to guide one or guide a kind of experience, text offers a way in which that's possible. But descriptive text actually ends up either constricting it or can end up constricting it, or can be a vehicle to provide another opportunity to further immerse oneself into the worlds that are being offered.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of also offer too. Like, I think I like describing images, and I think one thing I think I notice about writing, descriptions of works, is that it usually makes me notice things I wouldn't have if I hadn't sat down to describe it. Compositional things or details, and so in that way, I think sometimes when you there's one thing when you glance at an image, but I think when kind of experiencing an image description, you're kind of getting a description from someone who sat with an image for a while. And so I think that also can kind of change I think it's a distinct experience. And I think it like complements and like kind of, and it like interacts with the image in an interesting way.
It's, I guess maybe to also to clarify, it's like right, like there's
Right, because there's lots of different ways. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, because like the title isn't the description, and I think that's like part of, which oftentimes it is like X, Y, and Z. Like this is the name of the person, or this is the name of the place, and this is the time, and that like is some information. But it actually, yeah, and oftentimes it's also like part of the legibility of the thing. And I think we're all after something else. Like like it's which actually might be possible in the description. Yeah, I do think that's sort of like that's the slowing down that is required to create a description is, I think also in response to being offered something that made you slow down. You know what I mean? Like it's it's much easier to describe some images than it is others. And I'm
Yes.
yeah, Kearra.
I'm thinking about like that image and description bit because when I work with video, like oftentimes I try to be writing the description ahead of time, and when I'm writing the description ahead of time, I'm rolling my eyes because I'm just like, well, from the time I start actually working on this thing and it starts becoming a more intuitive process and it is like an intellectual pursuit, it's a whole different piece of thing to work with. It's a whole different piece of work. And thinking about how like you start with one description and however like how you say like spirit moves, you end up with another one, and text really kind of like sets up that text. And I'm also thinking about text as confinement and trying to figure out ways. No, I'm just like sitting here trying to figure out ways how to escape that.
Well, I'm wondering, I'm wondering, like, is there an element of like does the script where does the script come in place, I guess, and then also maybe even like ordering of shots, like how does like sequence come into play?
I feel as if for me, I end up writing some poem first and I'm just like, I don't know what this is doing right now. I don't know what she's saying. She might need some sort of visuals, and I'm just like, okay, cool, I don't know what that's doing. And then I will start testing things out because I work super, super intuitively. So if it's like I work from dreams to like if I dream something and I'm just like, okay, what is that? Why am I thinking of that? And how does this relate to what I've written? And like how is this all like subconsciously connecting? Does this need to be manifest to work hand in hand with this piece of text that I'm writing? Or sometimes it's the other way around. And so I feel like it's a lot easier for me now to like actually not stress myself out about explaining how I see, not to say that you're stressing me out, but like explaining how I sequence. Because when I'm sequencing, it is basically like sometimes I'll be putting things together and then I realize, oh, okay, this could be supplemented by text. This is not sufficient. And then it produces more text in that way. So they're kind of like definitely like talking to each other frequently all the time. It's definitely not like a singular process, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe I didn't really, the question took another turn. But actually, when I was thinking about like not being able to place you earlier when I was speaking about your photograph, Kearra, I was thinking about like an element of choreography. I think the other sort of like, I mean, like Justin, you actually work in like performance and movement in a way, but I'm not even a way, just sort of like very literally. But I'm thinking about the way that that's actually also present in and is actually maybe even like the grounding principle of being an artist, is sort of like, I also mean this like across like a range of experiences and abilities, and but the sort of the primary requirement is embodiment, and so I'm wondering like how does like where you are and how you situate yourself become like what is the role of your actual placement in generating the world?
Hmm. I mean, I think I think if I'm thinking about like I guess you mean how do I get how
Yeah,
what's
let me know if I lost my
yeah?
thread.
Can you say it? Can you say
Yeah.
it? Yeah. Can you like rephrase it? Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess maybe even like I'm like there's a way in which like geometry in the mornings is like kind of a long walk home. Like it's kind of like like waking up in the middle of nowhere and like trying to walk back home, and like trying to do that across like many terrains, and that's only possible in that all of those terrains were like that I'd come across all of them. You know what I mean? Like or were offered them even. And also within that, there is like crouching, and there is standing, and there is sitting, and there is like being horizontal, and all of those positions like inform the next thing, be it the image, the text, the literal installation. Yeah, and so I'm like, yeah, I'm just thinking of like movement, I suppose, and like and yeah. Well,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sometimes, yeah, I'm just a perpetual clearer, so that wasn't an indication to speak.
I
did have something that I wanted to say, but no, this is
no, go ahead. You go.
Okay. But yeah, I was just thinking about what would it be defined as a long walk home? Like, thinking about, creatives are perhaps more in tune with this, and, creative can be liberally applied here. But, the idea of liberation, the idea of kind of returning to a language that maybe you were somehow divorced from, or that was stripped from you, returning to your body, home is like kind of pursued in all of these various ways. Death, sometimes folks are just looking forward to dying, so that they can be returned to what have you. So yeah, everything kind of feels like a long walk home in that way. And when you said that, I was thinking specifically of like the gestures that you highlight in the show, like the marks on the skin, the marks in the ground, which that image being used to promote this conversation between us all. An image that's not included, the image of the spit, which was the spit in the branches. All of these things that one might discover, like on a long walk home, and these beginning to define that path through these various impressions. Like, yeah, literally, like, these are the things that have marked us, and Yeah, so for me, that this is the thought that came up for me as you were speaking.
Now, as reframing things around long walk home, I'm thinking about like how walking home is a collaborative process in that way, where it's just like even with photo, where it's like in the instance it's like choreography, because look, I have done some crab like motions, so I need to get an image in the most literal sense. I am on the beach, I am sideways, all sorts of ways. But it's like definitely improv energy, but also like in a really like spiritual mode also, like right? Like it's definitely you and somebody else definitely working out exactly where you need to be and what is necessary. But then also when you think about it in terms of a long walk home, it's also thinking about how you might have to pass off some of that walking to somebody else, in that you may not be able to completely walk home, and how that is happening beyond your existence on this plane for the work as well. So when we think about like creating languages and things that we carry to create a language and move that into the future is really something to me. Like you make that and you're still living in the language, and that's a type of choreography in and of itself. But yeah, I was just thinking about that when you're thinking about home.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to, I think with my work, I tend to think about, this is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Long Walk Home is probably appropriate for me too, because I think I tend to make work that kind of helps me think honestly, like beyond what my home was, or beyond what I knew when I was at home, and to kind of, I think I make work to kind of expand the horizon in a sense, which I think is part of why my interest in like creating these new languages. It's like I wanted, like, what do I not know? And I think I see myself in relation to my work as like kind of embracing the fact that there's tons of things I don't know, and just being okay with being in awe of all the things I don't know, which I think is why language is fascinating.
I also want the floor to feel open to you all. So if there are questions on your mind, feel free to propose them. And and also, if you're feeling like we can transition into another moment of reading before chatting again, that's also available too.
I have two things. The first is, are we opening this to questions from people in the audience? Is that a possibility? Because as we're saying this, I'm like, what practices actually wouldn't define themselves in this way? And I'm curious to hear, maybe if anybody personally works in a way that is the antithesis of what we're sharing, or maybe knows of somebody whose work does that. But so that's my first thing. And my second thing, I guess, this is still lingering with me. As Kearra was sharing their first piece, and I had also read it a bit last night, I like remarked at the moment after La Tirana themselves. And I was like, this totally could have, I felt like my body was ready after that line, like, that was a line that kind of like tied things in a knot. And then it kept going. Like, we're still in the process of gathering and gathering things together. And that, I was like, wow, okay, this is the blade still going in, like still being dug into the body at this point. And I was really titillated by that feeling. And I guess, likewise, as Justin was reading, I was like, damn, bitch, I'm on a marathon. Like this feels like running. Like this feels like you need the stamina to participate. And I immediately started thinking about, Justin's performances, which have a lot to do with endurance, or in my view, have had a lot to do with endurance. And I'm like, okay, what's the link here? What's the link between writing, feeling like running, and the literal running? So those are just comments that don't need to take up space beyond this moment. But that's just something I was feeling.
I am glad that you brought us back to Kearra's piece, though. I just want to repeat words back at you, Kearra, just so you know how much you're fucking me up. Architectural callaloo of sorts, and give myself grounds to bury, like, body at war with concept.
That It doesn't fit in. Yeah.
My tongue spears the windows, blowing them out like brown candles, poison at the tip. Like, yeah, just so you know.
I'm getting heckled by a friend right now about architectural callaloo. Shout out to you. I hope I do something for you.
Wow.
But thanks, y'all.
Stressed out. Honestly, and I really, Justin, you and I have performed together in a variety of ways, and I'm really excited about hearing both Kearra and Elliott, because just the actual like sonics of your voice, like hearing you all on the phone, like and also obviously in person, like I'm just beaming on the other side, like I'm just like so warmed by your voices, but also hearing you activate your work in this other way, I've experienced your work primarily visually, and so like just this other form of igniting it is really truly just a blessing for me. Like you all are here as me being a big fan of you all, so I'm just truly honored to just be hanging out.
Also, in case anybody was wondering, the questions have been turned off. If you're in the audience, it's like, wow, when do I get to ask a question? I would have just made aware of that. Sorry.
Yeah, I also did. But I guess like DM us after or something. Like if you want to chat.
No, if you have my number, send me a question. I'm
right. It's recorded. I don't want to be asked any questions.
Right, that's true.
Oh yeah, no. Q&As kind of suck.
Look, I'd be like, what y'all trying to excavate, honey? It sounds like an attack, and I'm circling back.
No, but this is why celebrities get the list of questions first, right? And then they review them, and like the ones that they cross out the ones you're not going to ask, and you give the sheet back. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Truly, yeah. The brave who answer questions on the fly, or are also good at turning down questions. Like people are just like,
no.
Like, wow, that's a power. I'm not yet. I'm not yet acquired. Maybe next solstice. Yeah.
The first time I saw Sandra Perry say no on a panel, Sandra Perry was just like, good question. Let me write that down. But anyways, y'all could go ahead. And I don't know if they ever remember saying that, but that changed my life, low-key, high-key. I was just like, I'm never answering a question again. But sorry, not to derail. Go back.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am interested in hearing you all again. So who would like to go first? Or maybe I'll go so that way you all can fend for yourselves. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because I don't want to be last, so I am. Maybe I'll just go now. Yeah. I'll be reading from Wild Peach.
Period.
Okay. 1,000 dead seconds ripple across collective cornea. Radical nothing, swelter blessing, languid misstep. Private delight, membrane of your pulpy peculiarities. The slow blood running. The work is beyond what can be. accomplish, this will lead to other things, fracturing, fragmenting, unadorned and afloat. I'm loyal to this breath so long as it's loyal to me. Immaterial world, bubbling. Such was structure. Avenging angel of the archive fell from sand cliff and landed gelatinous, and yet it moved. Maybe this time I'm on my knees, unmitigated. The bad weather you bring me, granted ungrounding root, ripping gratuitous turnips, bleeding grass, blade, glass, green, slippery non-denominated. What is the architecture of parody and terror? Wool intelligence, holy intellect spider mothers, much of the non-conformant parent in me is anchored in looking, in stone think, my sleepy seahorse, my generative diameter blue sun, year soon, sea moss monarchy, tell me when you reach the horizon for our elaborate revenge. I have the spite, I just need the money. One more. I see it all when I reach for the summer water, falling heavy, heaving hymnals harrowing. Brother, I hear you whistling. I am prone to flies in my morning, flies in my tea. In my teeth, they fly through new obstacles, ostensibly rare bit. Barefoot along the rim, the smoky body tumbles into flash heart, into flash heat. Brother, we are joyous despite blisters, and I see you just over the summer water, and I miss you, sugar cut. Sweet, sweet sanctuary, sincerely yours. 24 in the lion's mouth, 2 in the virgin oil. Some circles, etc., enclave, in cave. Right for the Jupiter, right for the Jupiter. Juniper, right for the juniper, ripe for it all. Extend the rarity, the raw sleep of flowers.
Mhm.
Who's next?
Let me just get it over with. Y'all know I can't stand the sound of my own voice. Let's go.
Come on, you need to stop. You need to stop.
Okay, this is from like a video I'm making now, coincidentally about sound. And I don't know, as Elliott said, like, oh, the knife is still going, essentially. Um, love can look like a full reset. And I love that I've heard this song before. And I love that I'll hear it again. It's like the dove leaving the ark, you know? How do you want to start anew if you're not willing to flatten everything in your way? Questions about the sustainability of rage are answered collectively. It's a feeling that resides in the commons more than anything else. And I love being incited to mangle. If I'm mangling anything, I want to mangle it with you. Like together, you know? That's when it counts the most. When we're in the crush of things, and your velour eyes run a relay between the fire here and the fire to come and the fire from down the line, and we're everywhere at once, you and I, riding a rhythm from carnival's past. And what if we listen for once? Like really listen? What if the sound didn't corral us? What happens when the world is a stage and we liberate sentiment from context? And I love a plot, I love a directive towards no directives but murder. Dead the gratitude, dead the behavior, dead the remorse until the time is right. When it all boils down, who can render the noise like the flesh? When tunnel wounds produce the sigh in the pulpit before the last amen, the thud on the floor when something larger than you tackles your body and wills it to stay there. Now I believe in noise, in the merits of cacophony. How can we open up temporal pathways for collaboration? How can we gather the lingering notes, the sticky, miserable ones who demand to be held, the ones that hang above our heads like nooses, and the ones that feel like a lick up sloppiest order, and make them concordant, harmonic?
You stop there?
I was like,
See, this is why I didn't want y'all to have the inside info. The inside info. Usually when I read that, I stop when the spirit tells me to stop. Because
all right, that's
So who are we?
I won't prod any further. Yes.
when the video drop, you get it. When the video drop, you get it. When the video drop, you get it.
Right.
All on the inside.
Exactly.
Wow.
And right, and that was the temporal pathway for collaboration. They said
You
stop.
know.
They said
Wow.
cut the camera.
That ass.
But yeah, I kind of like that Kearra chose that to read because it has a just a resonance in material, just in terms of the beginning, like dreamscaping about romance. Though I think the romance that Kiara's dreamscaping is different than the one that I am, but I don't know, maybe not. But this this particular thing that I'm going to read from was something I wasn't sure that I wanted to share because it started as a way for me to think about like people who I'm interested in, or whether that be romantically or otherwise, and how like a display of fallibility might make me run away. Or like a display of like inconsistency might make me feel superior. And I was like, okay, how do I begin to like accept that about myself and also about others, as a way that people kind of are kind of messy, and be able to hold that. So this is an ongoing poem that is really just a note, and so here we go. I want a black somebody who wonders where the buttons are in the blacks of Avedon suits. I want a black somebody whose memory can't recall if this is the right stop. Thick in the eyes, who has cooked off the worst of them, and yet still the worst is yet to come. I want a black somebody who scrapes off the burnt edges. Someone who wipes the crumbs from their feet before getting into bed, who gets repetitive when they're happy. I want a black somebody from the untalented 90th, who takes seriously a commitment of always and forever to all things, who helps me make it from 5 o'clock to 5:01. I'd like a black somebody, round still, like the sun beyond the oblong shape it makes through the clouds. A black somebody there before push comes to shove. Someone whose interest departs where mine begins in still one line. I want a black somebody in a black room with the marks left on the wall from the previous tenant.
Cool. So I guess I read now. I wanted to give a pause after that.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
Cool. So
it reverberates. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny that Elliott said this last poem felt like a marathon because the poem I'm about to read was intentionally written to make me run out of breath. So this is called it's called 140 BPM, 140 beats per minute, and it's about Bossa Nova Civic Club, which for our guests who are unfamiliar is a techno club in Bushwick. When the workload got us down, the bump of bass is all we have. We walk down Myrtle, below the train, elevated and rattling, past bars, bodegas, check for a line, and check the time. 'Cause there is no charge before 11, and we don't get paid until next Friday, and our rent is due tomorrow, and our families are calling, and our families aren't calling, and our lovers are calling, and our lovers aren't calling, and our fuck buddies aren't answering, and our application results are pending, and we need to forget for a few hours why we pay rent this high. and why we have 3 roommates. So we have come to thicken the atmosphere, to throw our bones against the air, to sweat out well drinks and beer, and drink well drinks and beer, and ask the bartender for a yerba mate with our choice of liquor, and the bartender passes us the bottle, and we gulp a third or maybe half and pass it. They fill the rest, and we pass them cash and head back to the dance floor where we mesh into the darkness, the proliferation outward and inward and outward, bending and elongating, stretching and dampening cotton and nylon and rayon and viscous, and wearing in our sneakers and wearing in our boots, and throwing and throwing and throwing undone our laces, and throwing undone our posture, and hunching and arching and hunching and twisting and sinking in to the body slump, the breath cleft, falling into rhythm and bending to the rhythm and succumbing to the rhythm, because the workload got us down, and cause we got to figure out who we are deep down, deep down.
Wow. Yeah. It does do it. Like, it does do it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. I have a, because you sent me the recording that was on the first episode of the radio show I was doing. And did you do that all in one take?
The recording I sent you?
Yeah.
I may have recorded it a few times because it was like a newer poem at that time, so I think I may have tripped up on the words more. But I mean, like, yeah. But the one I sent you, I just read it through once. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about the like the rules.
It was like.
Go ahead, no, please.
I was gonna say it was like loosely inspired because I was reading about like Langston Hughes would write poems and would like adjust the meter to replicate jazz meter. So I was like, well, what if I made a poem that thumped like a techno song? Was the idea, but then it also made me run out of breath the way I do when I dance to techno music.
Go ahead.
No, you go first.
No, I just had to throw away. I'm just like really into endurance poem as genre. But endurance poem is not a thing. Let's make that a thing. I'm not in poetry like that. Let's make it a thing. I really enjoy that. But go ahead, Elliott.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, mine is also a throwaway. But I just kept smelling, that smell that can happen in these places. And as when you said, like, drinking beer and all the various things that we're drinking, and I guess simultaneously sweating out. Like, yeah, that's why it smells like that.
But I'm thinking also about like the inherent temporal rupture of this poem, where it's like, where in Bossa Nova, in this moment, and also you're thinking about your application, and you're thinking about all these other places and other time streams that are like overdue or anticipated, or you know what I mean, like and so like even within the like rhythm that you're working off of, there's like just the actual rhythm of like life, and like the actual rhythm of like the city that you're in, happening all around, and like that's embedded into the like the like I'm I don't know, like I'm like hearing Robert Hood, and I'm also hearing like the scratch, like it's just like there's the constant, and then we're like going backwards to get back into the beat, it's like it's funny, literally one of the questions I have is just like, what is like how does sound operate for you all? And Kearra, you literally wrote a piece about sound. And obviously Justin, you did in a way as well. Or like and yeah, I'm also thinking, Kearra, about like, since we're coming off of VPNs, like I was, and you earlier saying like you work from Dream, yeah, and I'm just, what is the BPM of your dreaming?
That's a hard cue. That's a hard cue. And now I'm gonna say that what's the fastest you could go, because shit gets wild in there. Shit gets wild in there. It is definitely, it's no boogie energy, no boogie energy. It's like definitely movement festival energy.
Mm-hmm.
But the black DJs, not the other people.
No. Who else would there be? You know.
Well, child, you know they're in there. I said, whoa.
Serena Jara is a fabulous DJ. Don't do it.
Oh, well, let's come on. You know I'm not talking about Miss Jara. Come on.
Just want to put that out there.
You know, we go back. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Oh my gosh. And also just like, you know, maybe a comment that doesn't have to be. It could just. But I'm like, Elliott. I'm like sitting in 5 o'clock and I'm sitting in 5:01. And again, I'm like brought back to the altar, and that like that long half hour, you know, that like that might not, it like that feels like days or years or whatever, but it's like this long minute, or also this long 24 hours. Like it's 24 hours and a minute. It's like it's both sides of immediacy that you're asking for, and I'm yeah.
Yeah, that came. I mean, it came from something that I felt the other day. But as you just reiterated, it reminded me of a person who used to be a coworker who asked me how I was feeling one day, and I said, you know, I'm just taking it day by day, and she was like, "Shit, take it minute by minute," and I said, "Yeah, actually." Yeah, you know, I'm sure. So this idea of someone who kind of brings you from 5 o'clock to 5:01, it's like round of applause for you, because I needed that. You know, like what Kearra was saying about sometimes you need somebody to do the rest of the walking for you for whatever reason. Sometimes that person who kind of gathers you towards the next minute is just the person I wanted to reflect on.
Well, wow. Yeah. I'm wanting to be respectful of you all's time, and so I want to check in on how you're feeling. We've been in here for a little bit, and yeah, I could keep late as it is here, but obviously, you know, people need to eat dinner or lunch or just get on with their lives. So, yeah.
No, we have 10 minutes technically.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I am interested. I mean, I feel like I've like, in one way or another, I've like sprinkled my questions into things, but you know, we can chat about like permanence and ephemeral natures. But I'm also, I do want to know if there's anything on your mind that you'd like to chat about.
Well, I guess as a response to your to this last question on sound and like how sound factors into the work, I guess if we just kind of sound as observation as opposed to it being something necessarily heard. Most of the things that I write are similar to Justin, like an effort to realized something in writing it that I wouldn't have realized in simply savoring it as a memory or as affection or some other kind of feeling. And a lot of the lines in this last poem that I read are based on like an immediate reflection or immediate observation of of something kind of happening that I would like to further kind of like tongue over with words, and see where that brings me. Um, like something that I love about Justin's captions, which each time I read one, I feel like such a fangirl. But what I love about them is that it's just like, yeah, like, yeah, like, yes, that's what you should be putting out in this observation. Not, all responses are acceptable here, but like this one in this particular string of words, just say it to yourself. Like, that's how I teach as well. Like, I'm talking to high school students, like, tell me what it is that you see, because that if you can do, simply being able to do that will offer you quite a bit. So I feel like that wasn't a specific enough appraisal of Justin's writing, but I'm gonna leave it there.
No, thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say about I think thinking about sound as well. I think because I think my tap dancing background, I've always thought about sound in turn, and I think also related to language. I've always thought about sound in terms of like what I can produce from my body. I think primarily whether like clapping, stomping my feet, shouting, saying something. That's kind of, and even, I even think of like instruments and playing instruments. Like I think one thing I noticed from working with you, Sean, and like in Taja and Savannah, was just how physical instruments are. They're like they're a very bodily thing that I think I didn't totally realize until I performed with the band around me. So I think that's I think physicality and sound are kind of like to get bound together for that reason.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that, especially like that's exactly what I was gonna say regarding like physicality and sound. Like I'm trying to open up and give sound a lot more room in the practice. It's funny because I had a studio visit like last week, and somebody was I'm making like a 3-channel video, and the person was just like, there's a wall behind you. What's gonna go on the wall? And I said, I forgot that there was a wall, but then I was just like, wait, hold on. There's a seat, and the seat is a 4-channel because the seat is reverberating with the bass from the sound. So it becomes a character in that way. And I was just like, now thinking about sound by itself and bass lines as a 4-channel is really spicy. I'm into that. But yeah, just thinking about how sound could be, like not to be like basic, but like wall of sound energy, like literally a wall of sound. I'm trying to evoke that. Is really happening a lot. I'm trying to achieve like a full body sensation when you're looking at a video. Because everybody when they look at a video, they're just like, they have 2 minutes of attention, if so much, we dipping out. But like, if you really get people all over, if you really get people all over and you access so many different parts of them at the same time, they really can't run away. So I'll put the wall of sound there, put the video here, who knows, but I'll pull out that. But yeah, sound is really critical for that for me.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I feel this way about like reading specifically, and performing and presenting work. My sort of like first mediums were music, like whatever, singing in church, but also in bands and like in choirs and whatnot, and playing guitar and stuff, and just knowing like what like how hearing something activated you can't escape it. You know, like it's like there's like you can kind of like you can look at words, and that doesn't mean you're reading. And like I think you like can't like get away from sound. You know, like you can't get away from like just the embodied activation that it requires. You know, and yeah, I know. Elliott, you've read Tina Pam's Listening to Me, but also that sense of like that it comes back into this other mode of the work where it's like, yes, it's also mediated through an instrument, and that is like one that is like measuring and reproducing the frequencies of light, which also have a literal sonic quality. But then there's the like, what does this image sound like? You know, like what is, like, there's the roar of the ocean, and there's the like the blowing of the wind, and also maybe there's absolutely nothing. You know, maybe it's like the yeah, or and maybe I'm like doing the most here, but I've there have been moments where I've thought of the imprint on the person's leg as like a kind of score, like as the kind of like musical notation. Yeah, and like flesh as musical, and you know. Okay. Yeah. I'm really thankful for you. I was I don't know. Yeah, and then obviously then there's Never Created, Never Destroyed, and like I've just like Jalen and Black Oil Goblin and that song in particular. I don't know what it like. You know, it's like not a song that I've heard for the first time, but like this time around, there was that wall of sound, you know, and it, yeah, it's still shaking me. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Hi, Brittany.
Hello. Thank you guys so much. That was a lot to like take in on my end. Just wanted to say thank you for everybody who participated tonight. I'm going to be thinking about 5 o'clocks to 501s and daydreaming about Black somebodies and walks home. So I just want to thank you all for the beautiful energy that you shared with us tonight. I also want to thank all of our attendees who tuned in. You can stay up to date on this series as we'll be having another talk on February 4th at 5 p.m. EST. You can sign up for our mailing list for further updates at whitecoms.org. And as well, if you missed tonight's talk, you can find it archived and viewable on Sean's exhibition page at whitecoms.org. Again, you can follow us for updates on social media, whitecoms, white_whitecoms at Instagram, whitecoms on Twitter, and whitecoms on Facebook. Thank you again, everyone, all of our participants. Really appreciated sharing this time with you all. And like they said, if you have any questions for any of them, feel free to reach out to them on social media. You can find their information linked through our latest post. So yeah, thank you, Justin, Elliott, Kearra, of course, Sean. Really appreciated this, and yeah.
It's great. Yeah, I'm really thankful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right.
Good night.